Welcome to Upstart TV. I'm Shaye, and today we will be talking about online harassment. Joining me is Kaylyn, Josh, and Rachel. How are you guys going?
Good, how are you?
Good, yeah. So, very big issue we're discussing here today that clearly has an impact on a lot of people. I've got some stats here that kind of introduce just how much impact it is having. Plan International Australia, a human rights organisation, and a Violence Against Women's group, Our Watch, ran this survey that found that 70% of girls aged 15 to 19 were often bullied or harassed online, and 58% of those interviews also said they often received uninvited or indecent sexually explicit material. And only 6% of girls feel comfortable reporting online harassment, and 51% they were offered pressured into sexting. So why do we think this is happening so much on such a large scale and to young women in particular?
Well, I feel like the most alarming stat from that was 70% of girls said that it's happened to them, only 6% have felt comfortable reporting it. I feel like there's a major issue in understanding of how serious an issue this is to people, and there needs to be more awareness to girls to feel okay reporting it.
Well, for something that wasn't even an issue like 22 years ago, for it to be 70% of teenage girls, this is huge. And I think the powers that be, the police, the lawmakers, and the parents just don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah, and today with like smartphones and things, like the internet's something you can't escape. So obviously that's why those numbers have skyrocketed over the past couple of years. And like there's really nothing you can do other than just like be completely disconnected, which is unrealistic.
Yeah, especially in this day and age where everything's done online, it's almost impossible to just disconnect yourself from the social media world.
We've all been in group chats where like your phone just keeps buzzing and people just keep talking to you, and even when it's your friends and they're saying nice things, it can get a bit exhausting. So I can't even imagine what it would be like to have constant abuse.
Harassing messages, it would be awful. Another interesting stat there was only 6% feel comfortable reporting it. Why do you think that is? Why don't you think people are comfortable reporting these instances?
I think it's because like the topic is still so like taboo. Like, because like the older generations, like they never went through this, they have no idea. Like, so like obviously we're not gonna like tell our parents, we're not gonna tell anyone older than us because like they're gonna automatically just like be like, that's awful, like totally frowned upon. Whereas like with us, like we're more comfortable with it. So like maybe they'll tell their friends, but like, your friends aren't gonna do anything.
Yeah, like it might be hard for a young girl to say to her mother, I sent this picture, it's now going around, what do I do? Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of trust in the police system to fix it. I mean, in the past, there have been laws that have made it really difficult to report it, and I think maybe the stigma of that is still just hanging around, and it's really scary.
Yeah, it is really scary. It's just, it almost feels like there needs to be some changes done now because it's just going to keep happening.
Yeah, well, to give us a bit more of an insight, we have a segment to cut to. It covers Bianca Kirkwood, a female bodybuilder, and her experiences online.
Bianca Kirkwood, a 25-year-old bodybuilder, uses social media to post photos of her progress to gain exposure to potential sponsors, but the harassment she receives makes it hard to do so.
I've had comments such as, please don't get too big, you know, you can stop now, you look good, you don't need to go any further. Put my body out there, I put photos of myself online so people think it's fair to comment. The conversation can start quite normally, like what sort of training do you do, where do you train, all that sort of thing. To me, that's a normal conversation that I could have with anyone. There's nothing inappropriate there. And then it suddenly escalates to, do you want to meet up, or I would like to do this to you, or really sexual comments, and that's where the line is crossed. And that's when I need to say, you know, it's not okay. Inappropriate comments normally come through, I put a photo up, maybe within an hour or two, I've got a private message with inappropriate comments about my body. There's one guy that I've never actually met. He found me on Facebook. He lives like an hour away from me. A lot of mutual friends, so I accepted his request. And basically, whenever I post a photo online now, whether it be on Instagram or Facebook, he'll instantly like it, and then I'll get an inbox quite often asking me to go to his place near my home, or something along the lines of just inappropriate comments about my body, basically. And I actually called him out on it once and sort of said, why do you think it's okay to say things like that? And his response was that if he didn't tell me what he wanted, how would he ever get it? I either ignore it or just I basically don't reply. It doesn't stop them though, I still get unanswered messages, still get sent all the time. I think he sees his tactics as a tool to pick up women. I think he thinks it's socially acceptable. I'm not sure if that's because he sees that I've put that image of myself out there, so therefore it's okay to comment on the image, but the comments go beyond what I'm actually displaying in the photo. Maybe they don't realise it's not okay. I would think it's common sense that you know that it's not all right to say that to someone, but sort of brought up that you should be very polite and just dismiss people very passively. And I feel like sometimes that has let the situation continue, where I should have just been quite assertive and put my foot down and said, no, this is not all right.
Okay, so why do we think that this is a particular problem for someone like Bianca?
I think it's just because like it's accessible, like it's easy.
I think it's really hard for professional women. Like, for instance, Bianca needs to do that for sponsors. She needs to do it. But, you know, then she's opening herself up and being more accessible. But there are so many other women like that who need to be on social media and they're making money. That is their career. But, you know, just everyone makes it so much harder.
I think one of the reasons is such an issue is because people do need social media to get famous and to get public. And it means that these people can be inappropriate and rude and know that they're still going to have to remain in that area. They're not going to be able to cancel their Facebook or their Instagram or anything like that because they need to be there.
And like obviously the common like solution is just to block them, but she shouldn't have to like go out of her way to have to worry about blocking people.
Yeah, the onus isn't on her to have to block people. Why the guy shouldn't be doing that in the first place, which I think goes back to the kind of culture that we have where it's like we're teaching women like don't do this so this doesn't happen to you. Like there shouldn't be an issue that a woman has to change her behaviour to stop a man from doing something to her. It seems disgusting.
It does, yeah.
I thought it was really funny how people are like, just politely and nicely just tell them to get lost. Like, no, like
don't
why?
Be polite.
Don't be so entitled and message me weird things. Like,
no, I think if a guy's treating like that, you have a right to get rude, get angry, and be aggressive with them. Like they're treating you in a certain way. You have the right to treat
you
them.
in like a different format, but it's still aggressive. So
yeah, I feel like as you said, like the onus should be on the men making these comments as opposed to the women, but it feels like the way media are portraying it as like the women almost just as fault, which is just not true.
Yeah, and I found it weird that people were also telling her not to get bigger, people telling her what she should be doing with her body.
No, that's her choice.
Like, thanks, dude, who's not involved in this industry.
Exactly. Thanks, guy, I don't know.
Something that she kind of brought up there was kind of the reason she thought guys were doing, or the reason he said is that like kind of, well, if I never ask, I'm never going to get what I want. Yeah. Do we think that's a possible argument as to why these guys are doing it?
Yeah, like it's definitely like an ego thing because like no one like who's like an introvert and like has like no self-esteem is just gonna be like I'm gonna message this girl and tell her what I want to do. Like so, it all goes back to personality. Yeah.
When Bianca said like this guy must think it's socially acceptable, well, you know, maybe it is because it's happening so much and no one's doing anything. Yeah. So who can blame him for thinking it's socially acceptable? Because society is accepting it seems. We really need to fight back or do something.
Yeah, I think fighting back is key.
How could we fight back?
I think education is
awareness.
critical. Yeah, awareness.
Do you think that social media sites have a responsibility to do something in this kind of situation?
To an extent, but at the same time, how much can they police? Social media is so rampant, everyone uses it, and a lot of it is done rather anonymously. So there are certain things they can do in terms of security, but they can't really patrol everything.
But like they're a business, so like if it was happening with another, like a store, they were saying, oh well, we can't control everything because something went wrong in the store. People wouldn't accept that. Like this is still their business, their responsibility. Yeah. I personally still think that they should have ways where you can filter messages more.
They'll just have to like put in like a a filtering system where like it picks up like on keywords. But like I don't even know if that'd be like 100% effective.
Yeah.
You could have like an army of moderators, but that would be very expensive. I don't think many companies would be going out to do that.
So like pay all those people to just read messages all day?
Yeah, especially with high-profile women in particular, like Bianca. And then we have there's another high-profile woman who we've all seen things like this happen to, Kim Kardashian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of media places don't like to talk about it, but I think she comes into this subject quite well. She recently posted the naked selfie of her in her mirror and got a huge backlash.
Yeah.
Like people were very angry about it, and her response to it was very interesting. She because when the backlash mainly regarded her and her sex tape. So she responded, I lived through the embarrassment and fear and decided to say, who cares? Do better, move on. I shouldn't have to constantly be on defense, listing off my accomplishments just to prove that I'm more than something that happened 13 years ago. I'm empowered by my body. I'm empowered by my sexuality. And I think that's a really great attitude to be teaching women is that you don't have to be ashamed about your body. You don't have to be ashamed about this. You can be empowered by it.
Yeah, well, that would have taken a lot of guts to do, to put yourself out there, to make a statement like that and proclaim that, like, I'm not ashamed of who I am or what I am. I'm who I am, pretty much.
Well, the biggest thing with the backlash I find is like Victoria's Secret models have Instagram and they post pictures of themselves like basically naked all the time and they don't receive any backlash. So it's weird that like they can post almost the same thing and it just like it goes back to your profession and how you got there, really.
It's a bit hypocritical.
Exactly.
I think maybe there's kind of this ideal that like once a victim, always a victim. Like Paris Hilton and Kim K, they both had sex tapes leaked of them when they were quite young women, and then you have two options there. You can go into hiding for the rest of your life and let it ruin your life, or you can do as Kim said and stand up, be better, move on, get stronger. Like, I think it's amazing.
There was also quite a positive reaction as well to it, like the artists that we saw graffitiing it on the wall, the people like recreating the selfies themselves. Like, it did also prove that there are people out there willing to support women. I think more of that needs to be seen, more of that needs to be covered.
Yeah, like we need to start looking at it in a more of like a different light. Like it has to be stopped being so like ashamed and because like really it's not that big of a deal.
Like if the world sees it as a positive thing, it'll change people's opinions of that. They shouldn't see that picture and go, oh, that's a negative. They can go, oh, look how I'm proud of her for doing that.
It just all comes down to supporting women, I think. You just, you're on one side of it or you're not. You've just got to stand up for women who are going through this.
Yeah, and don't know if I should be bringing this in, but I was particularly proud of Kim Kardashian. So I went out and found a mural that was painted of her in Melbourne, and I did a little pose in front of it, which was quite interesting on the screen there. So I just think stuff like that needs to be happening more, showing that we're supporting women, that we're supporting what they should be allowed to think. But then I didn't receive any backlash from it. I was completely supportive.
Yeah.
Who took that photo?
A friend. It was an interesting experience. But we have some breaking news now. Then we're going to cross to Tyler Marr to cover it.
Thanks, Shaye. Safina Nikat has been arrested after making a full confession to murdering 14-month-old toddler Sanaya Sahib, who was found in Darabin Creek near Heidelberg West. Initially, Safina claimed that a shoeless male, smelling of alcohol and of African appearance, snatched Sanaya from her stroller while walking in the park.
So what led to the confession, Tyler?
Well, CCTV footage from the park shows Safina entering with Sanaya and calmly leaving a short time later with an empty stroller, which induced suspicion in her story.
Tyler, has there been any word from the father about this?
The father, Samir Sahib, was quoted as saying, "I just feel sick in my stomach." He's been estranged from his wife for close to a year and restricted access to his daughter for almost 6 months. But out of the blue last Wednesday was invited round to see her, something he said was suspicious.
And what charges have been laid against the mother at this point?
Safina has been remanded to appear at the Melbourne Magistrates Court on charges of murder, and police have also conducted a welfare check on Miss Nikat's family.
Thanks, Tyler. A very sad development in a very, very sad story. But we're going to go back to our next segment, who we spoke to La Trobe student Jara Waits, a victim of revenge porn.
So basically, I was really young. I was in year 9, so I was probably like 15. And I started talking to this guy that I didn't go to school with, and we started talking and stuff, and it eventually got to the stage where we were talking about, pictures and stuff like that. I eventually just was like, you know what, stuff it, I'll send it. So I got a message from a girl who was 2 years older than me, and she was kind of saying, you're a slut, how could you do this, you're so young, I can't believe you, your sister knows, like your sister's going to find out, your sister knows who was my sister was the year above the girl that had sent the message. She was like, everyone knows about this, people think differently of you, just kind of reiterating how dirty I was, how gross I was. And I remember it was horrible. I remember I would walk down, we had like a corridor that you'd walk down, and everyone would be in classrooms, so I remember looking and everyone would literally be staring, referring back to their phone and looking up at me. I remember walking up the stairs, people, saying remarks under their breath, and it was shit, like it sucked. Didn't feel like I had any type of support with it. If I was 18 plus, I would have reported it, but if I had gone to the police, I was trying to work it out and research it, that even if I got him in trouble for it, I'd also probably have a record on my name of producing it and creating child pornography. It was probably the worst when a person sent the photo to my mum, and that really sucked. worked, so it was just really hard because I felt like I didn't have my family, I didn't have friends, I didn't really have a support network of any type. I don't think it's educated enough about it, to be completely honest. Like, I remember it in year 8 when you do the basic sex ed and they talk about it. They don't really say the consequences of how bad it can actually be, and like, obviously I wish that someone had gone back and been like, you know, don't do this, it's a massive mistake. It's changed me as a person. Like, I never like show revealing clothing. Like, I really don't like doing that. It makes me very uncomfortable. I'm like always very like cautious, or like I think that people are gonna look at my photos on Facebook or Instagram or whatever and kind of been like, oh yeah, she's got her boobs out, she's a slut, and always refer to it, even though it was like, what, 3-4 years ago. It's kind of still in the back of my mind. I know to myself that I will never, ever, ever, ever send any type of photo, any type of message, anything like that. So the trust in that way, I know that it's completely burnt. Like, I'm never going to get that back ever. I think I would have liked to see him get some type of punishment and not just be, you know, let off as a legend.
Quite a disgusting story there, and what happened to her. I think her story really proves the kind of cultural problem that we have regarding women and women's sexuality. She was, if that's the kind of sexual relation she wanted to have with her, who she was talking to, that's absolutely fine. He then felt that he had the right to take that photo, use it without her consent. So what do we think about how she was treated after the photo was released?
I think the worst part is that the other girls were like kind of like talking down towards her, because like it could have very easily have been them for anything, like especially the older girls. They should have been very supportive. They should have like helped her through it, even if they've never experienced it themselves.
If you thought that you could rely on anyone for support, I would have thought it would have been other women and older women as well.
Who would understand, like
what if that was me?
Yeah, you think they would be able to think that, and then they chose to vilify her, and it's clearly had quite a large impact on her. She now has a shame attached to her sexuality. She doesn't like to wear revealing clothing.
Yeah, it's been 3 years.
I mean, I guess that's what we were saying before about Kim Kardashian and everyone else. Like, it happens to you once, and the stigma is forever. Yeah. You'd have to deal with it forever.
Yeah, well, I think she brought up how in year 8 she had sex education, and how they talked about how they never really explained the consequences of the actions that you can make as a child. And I think that's what is so important, and that's the reason that many of these cases are coming out and things like revenge porn are becoming so relevant, is because there's just not enough awareness.
Yeah, and it seems to be when they are taught about it, they're just taught not to do it, don't do it. They're not taught, if this happens to you, here's what you should do. She clearly had no idea where she should go and what she should do with it. All she knew is that if she does report him, she's going to get in trouble as well.
Yeah, which is absolutely crazy. I don't find, like, you should not end up on, like, a sex offender list because you sent a photo of yourself. Even if you were underage, like, you're obviously not, like, a predator to children, but, like, it's going to, like, affect her, like, getting jobs and stuff in the future. So
absolutely, it narrows your options.
Yeah.
But also, like, sexting is a part of your sexuality
like
now.
Modern sexuality, yeah.
I read this article that said that over the past 7 years, actual teenage sex has gone down 10% almost, about 8%. So that is a huge drop in actual sexuality. Yeah. But of the people who are active in some way were all, half of them, I think it was about like 58% of them were all just sexting. So, I mean, obviously that is a natural and normal part of sexuality now, and it's not going away.
So so that would then lead to the thing that we need to be educating people more on kind of sexting, online sex, how they should handle it, what they should do about it, instead of just like, don't do it, that's all. Like, it's kind of the old thing where you refuse to teach kids about actual sexuality and actual sexual health. Like, if you're not teaching them about it, just saying like, no, don't do it, then that's when the problems arise.
Yeah,
it's when
you definitely need to teach the consequences rather than just like avoiding it, because it's not going to go away, and it's probably just going to keep getting bigger.
Yeah, it's just going to lead to more issues.
And as times keeps changing, people are going to find more ways to do things like this. So there needs to continue to be policed and adapted and taught to the students.
Especially with things like Snapchat now, where like it doesn't even have to have like a permanent record. It just goes away in like 6-8 seconds, whatever you want it to be.
Well, going back to the legal side of it, we spoke to the commander of the Victorian Police Force, Dean Stevenson, and he gave us more insight into the legal side of Jarrah's situation.
This kind of offending in overall crime is still reasonably low, but it's growing at about 21% in the last 12 months. It's the right thing to do to come and report it, and that we're better at it. Our detectives are better trained in terms of how to deal with victims, and they're better trained in how to investigate these things. Think about who you actually want to share this with, and think about who you would have shared with it intimately in a way other than through social media, and keep it to those people.
Okay, so there's obviously been quite a positive change in the laws where you won't get in trouble if you do send a photo of yourself. Do we all agree that it's a positive change?
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
without doubt.
I love that Dean said that now that it's better and that we're better equipped to deal with it and we can help you. I mean, I just think that's a really important message to get that out there, because there was a lot of distrust about these laws and about other things, but to actually say we're better at it now, we weren't so good before, come to us. I think that's really important.
Yeah, especially important for the police to be adapting to these situations, because with these laws placed in, they need to be on top of these things before things can get out of hand and things can get more serious. So yeah, it's really good that the police are trying to make that change.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a campaign that has been released recently called the Line Campaign, which shows some really powerful images of like a man with a tattoo on his arm saying that he sent naked photos around, something like that. So do we think that this is an effective way of trying to maybe change the culture around sending naked photos?
Yes, definitely, because like social media is the root of the problem. So by putting like campaigns like that on social media, you're going directly to the source of the people who need to see it. And especially with like pictures like that, like you're gonna remember it, like it's gonna be a lasting effect rather than you just like seeing something like on like a bus station, or because like you're not really paying attention. Like
I agree. It's like as a lasting image, seeing something like that on someone's body, they're permanently scarring their body to show that they feel the shame that they should.
Yeah, the same shame that the woman would feel.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's a really important campaign. I'm not sure if actually going around tattooing people is something we should be doing, but you know, it's definitely a powerful image.
But I guess it could be a good scare tactic. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, why? It just does seem a bit extreme, but why shouldn't we? Like the men at some point, like what kind of punishment are they getting? At some point, I feel like they do need some kind of punishment. What do we think
I
that
agree,
they
there
should
definitely
get?
needs to be much stricter punishments on men for the doing this. I think, as we said, the onus is on them. It's not the woman's fault. Why should they feel like they're the ones who have to feel ashamed, and then the men shouldn't?
yeah.
The punishment at the moment is up to 3 years in prison. Do we think that's effective? Do we think that's enough?
Well, I do because it is sexual harassment. It'd be the same like if I was like out in a parking lot and someone came up to me and just flashed me. Like it's exactly the same. And sometimes it can like borderline stalking, which is a whole different offense on its own.
Yeah.
I think 3 years is good, but also I wonder how many convictions they're actually getting.
Because it's a great rule, but how many women out there have had this happen to them and they've gone, I don't want to report this because I don't want to feel uncomfortable, I feel ashamed. The reporting of the things is just as important as the actual punishment. Yeah,
it must be hard to try and police it because these girls are feeling ashamed. They're not really wanting to go and talk to police and not wanting to talking to older people. So how can we handle that? Like making it more comfortable for young girls to report situations like this?
Well, I keep harping back to education. I think at schools there needs to be much more taught about how, because these things happen a lot, they need to be taught that it's okay. It's okay for them to go out and report it, that they shouldn't feel shame for it.
I think it'd be great if there was a certain division where you wouldn't necessarily have to go speak to a man in uniform. Like if you could do it, you could even report it online, or maybe you can just go see someone. Like, you know how there's a report to Facebook feature where you report to the admins or whoever. Maybe there could be a report to police as well. I would definitely make use of that.
An online thing might be easier because then they don't have to actually go and sit with like an older man or something. Like as Dean was saying, the police do know how to handle it better, but again, the girl might not feel comfortable.
You're like a young girl, you're obviously not going to want to go and talk to like some like 50-year-old man about like
your sexual your sexual behavior. Like it's going to be uncomfortable.
Like maybe if like you had the option of like officers to speak to, you could speak to like a younger like woman, that might help.
Yeah, I think that would be really good.
Yeah.
From the Line campaign, there was a really good quote that I found. It says that once the image is in your possession, you've got a responsibility to do the right thing. As sweet as it might be to have a pic of someone you know not wearing a lot, you've got to be the one to stay classy. I really like that quote because it's putting the onus on the person who receives the photo. It's not saying don't send the photo. It's like once you've got this photo, it's your responsibility to stay classy with it. Do we agree that's a good way to go about it?
The message being sent of it's not the problem of sending the photo, it's the person who gets sent it to do the right thing with it. I think that's a much more important message being sent through that.
I also think it's a bit beautiful because it does kind of romanticize it a little bit in the sense that like someone sending you a photo, if that's how people are expressing their sexuality these days, then that's an act of love. Someone sending you that is saying I trust you, you know, maybe I love you, and you know you should respect that. You should, you know, stand by them.
Yeah, it works. I think it works really well because, as you're saying, it is like sending a photo might be a way to, you don't exactly know what the relationship's like, but it's kind of showing a sign of affection. You're showing like how you're feeling about this person in a certain way, and then so you should, you should be really respecting that. We've sorry everyone. Our field reporter Blaze Opie heard from Latrobe students about their thoughts on unsolicited dude nudes.
Have you ever received a sexually explicit photo that wasn't warranted?
Yes. Yes, I have.
How did you react to that?
It's a bit of a shock when you don't really ask for it, I guess.
Firstly, usually a bit of shock because it's normally out of the blue, unexpected, uninvited. I think they're very proud of what they're sending. Like, they're enjoying the reaction that they get.
I think that they just think that they're proud of what they're sending.
Relate it to a bit of like a male ego thing. Secondly, they're just strange people.
There's a level of immaturity there.
I think probably a lot of people wouldn't realise that that's a form of sexual harassment.
But there's also, it's a cultural thing.
You can't really report it anywhere or ask for help or talk to parents about it. You can't really do much.
Context is everything, and like consent is a thing.
So maybe a bit more education when you're like in school or something, being like, well, that is actually a form of sexual harassment.
Okay, so some great points made there. Did any of those stand out in particular to you guys?
The one that stands out the most to me is that one girl who says there's really nothing you can do about it. Like, you can't really report it, which shows how much we really do need to educate this, because she honestly doesn't believe that there's anything she can do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think some of them, the responses were quite funny. Like, it is a bit of a light situation where it is serious, obviously, but like opening your phone and receiving an unsolicited photo like that must be quite jarring. And I think that one of the girls just saying that they're strange people. I think that's a good response. That this is a strange kind of idea to have, that a man going, I'm going to send a girl a photo of myself like this.
When she doesn't want it.
Is it? Do we think it's kind of an attitude like, oh, she's not going to be able to resist?
Maybe.
I have no idea why people do it. Yeah. And they say it's like a strange idea or it's strange people. It's not. It's so common and it's happening every day to like so many people. So I guess it's just the thing to do. And some people out there must get a kick out of it. I'm sure
some people are like okay with it, but I can't see that number being too high. But what I would like to know is like if that tactic has ever worked. Like,
there'd be someone out there. It's probably
I reckon one person's been like, oh, that's nice. Let's go. Let's do this. Like,
oh, nice. Like maybe we'll give it a shot.
I would think without a doubt though, it's definitely an ego thing. Men feel like they're doing it, they're showing themselves. This is look at me kind of thing, and they feel like, especially because it's done through things like Snapchat and Tinder, it's much more anonymous. They feel like they're not going to get in trouble for it, so they feel like, oh, I don't have to worry about it too much. I'll do it. What's the risk? I think the problem they need to be taught is that there is a risk. Yeah. And as long as people are patrolling it, that there should be consequences as a result of it.
And it is actually a crime. Like, it is illegal. That, like, it's a crime to use your mobile phone or the internet in an offensive way or to harass somebody. And that as well carries the maximum penalty of 3 years in jail. Do we think 3 years in jail for sending a dude nude is a little bit much?
I think it depends on how often you send them. Like, if you're going to send like one, like obviously you should not go to prison for 3 years. So I think that needs to be like a spectrum. Yeah. Because like harassment is obviously if you're like constantly sending them to someone, like yes, 3 years. But if you sent one like once and that person reported it, like obviously you shouldn't go to jail for 3 years. It should just be like a fine, maybe like.
I don't know. I think if you actually get to the point where someone reports it in this day and age, then they've been doing it for a while. Yeah. You know, like they've definitely been at it.
So each report should be taken seriously.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, maybe just like a class action thing, just get together with everyone who's ever received a picture. But I would find it really horrible. I think it's just like someone coming up to you and flashing you in the parking lot. It's scary.
What do you think about like the Instagram pages or the Tumblr pages where they post the pictures like that? Do we think that is do we think that's okay, or do we think that's kind of the same situation?
Well, I think people who post those things, they should be taken down instantly because it's just not appropriate.
Or do you mean
like kind of like the girls who repost all the photos of the pictures that they're getting is kind of a way to shame the men that are sending the unsolicited pictures?
But like I feel like if they're sending it to you unsolicited, they don't really care if you're posting on the internet. Like they obviously want people to see it.
I read this great thing about there are these Instagram models who of course are getting these pictures on the regular. And instead of posting it to the public, they find out who this person is, which is quite easy to do through Instagram and Facebook, and then send the photo to their girlfriend or mother with a short little notice that says, this is what's happening.
Okay, so I want to hear your guys' opinion on what we can do about this whole issue, like the kind of online harassment thing. So what's a closing statement on what you think should be done about this issue, like just one thing we think can help?
I think like the number one thing is education to both young and old, because like the older generations need to know that this is a thing and they need to know what's happening and exactly what it is so that they can help like their younger generations deal with it. And we need to learn the consequences rather than just trying to avoid it altogether.
Yeah, Josh?
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with that statement. I think education is critical. I think policing it in particular is very important. As much as, and to an extent, it's because they can't do everything, but as much as they can to prevent like things like this, because it's going to if it's not police, it's going to continue to be rampant. So I feel like education and then making sure that if you feel like you've had something inappropriate happen to you, that you feel comfortable reporting it.
Yeah.
I agree with both those things, but I think education is going to take a while to kick in, and I think in the meantime, peer support and peer reviewing, like you need to just stand up for someone on the internet when you see this is happening to them.
Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for watching, and remember to keep it classy, kids.